Were you crying when you were shooting him?
I don't remember.
Were you crying when you were stabbing him?
I don't remember.
How about when you cut his throat? Were you crying then?
I don't know.
So take a look then. And you're the one that did this, right?
Yes.
And you're the same individual that lied about all this, right?
Yes.
Jodi Arias grilled by the prosecution over her inability to remember details of the brutal murder of her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander. 17 days she's been on the stand, and she's still talking. But are the jurors buying it? Joining me is Harvard University psychiatrist Dr. John Sharp, body language expert Tanya Ryman, and attorney Jeff Gold, who has been in the courtroom. All right, welcome, guys. Tanya, what do you make of the clip that we just played coming into this block where she's crying, covering her face, telling the prosecutor she can't remember?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you look, there's really no crying going on here. I mean, her movements
I can't tell.
match.
She's got her hand
Well, that's the
in
whole
front of her
thing.
face.
If she were really crying, the tears would be coming down. She wouldn't be pushing into her glasses. She would actually be wiping away her tears. What she's doing here is she's trying to cover up her face so that people can't see what she's really doing. She's hiding.
You think she's that prepped?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Is the jury buying her stuff, Jeff?
You know, for most of that direct testimony, I think they were being suckered into this story that she was used for sex and all. I mean, it was very seductive, but then and for 11 days, she testifies about every detail. And then for 24 minutes, she says she can't remember about what happened on the murder, on the killing. It was unbelievable. There was disappointment in that jury.
All right. Now, doctor, I mean, you haven't examined her, but at the same time, I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist or a Harvard professor to figure out that I don't think that she's crying, and she's somewhat robotic in the way she answers questions.
Right, those are tears, but she's so detached from her emotions, it's actually hard for normal people to relate. You know, we cry, we feel the sadness. She cries, the sadness is far away in a box, put aside. It's not actually how she's feeling in the moment. That's how she operates day to day.
All right, let's take a look at this. Here's another clip of Arias answering a question from her attorney. She says no twice, but is her body saying yes?
Did you have a gun with you?
No.
Did you have a knife with you?
No.
You have a cell phone with you?
Yes.
Now let's look again at that clip in slow motion. All right, something happened. All right, Tanya, she's being questioned by the jurors. Right. Talk to me.
So this is what we see. As she's being questioned, did you have a knife? Did you have a gun? She does a very subtle head nod. As she says no, her head moves up and down. And that's, you know, unconsciously, she's telling us the truth. Her body is telling us the truth. So you know that she's lying. But in addition to that, if you watch, when she's asked about the gun and the knife, her mouth tightens up, her jaw clenches. And then when she's asked about the cell phone, everything is nice, smooth, and relaxed. So you know that there's discomfort. There's a level of discomfort when being asked about the gun and the knife, and that's one of the big red flags here. The nodding of the head with her body telling us yes, and then in addition to that, the clenching of the jaw.
So the involuntary reactions are what Tanya
The
said betray her.
involuntary reactions are what gives away her true feelings, her true emotions. But she's smart enough to cover her face, Jeff.
Cover her face. She poked herself in the eye to make herself cry. You watch that picture again. She pokes her
That's
tear
why there
duct.
was
Is that what we
tears
were going to see in
initially.
slow motion?
You saw her poke. And not only that, but anybody who's denying this would deny it, instead of being meek and mild and saying, no, no, I didn't. It doesn't make any sense when you're listening to it. I would deny it. No.
All right. Now, she says that, and she admitted that she lied twice about how Travis was killed. I mean, you know, there were these guys who came in and et cetera, et cetera.
On tape.
So, on tape, right. So, is there any reason that the jurors should, at this point, believe her in her third reason for his death?
Not unless she could somehow become someone else and be honest and be able to convey how she feels. There's no way that's ever going to happen. That's not her psychological makeup.
All right. So, Jeff, the jury questions her about her so-called memory issues this week. Let's take a look.
How can you say that you don't have memory issues when you can't remember how you stabbed him so many times and slashed his throat?
Well, I think that I have a good memory, and June 4th is an anomaly for me. it's like I said yesterday, it's in a class of its own, and I can't explain what kind of state of mind I was in.
June 4th, the day she
That's it.
killed him, it's an anomaly to her. How did that hit you, Tanya?
You know what? If you watch her, she's literally smiling. You see a little grin on her face. And we tend to do that, again, unconsciously, without realizing we're doing it, to say, I got away with it. So what she's telling us is, in essence, I got away with it, these little smiles.
Well, she's so separated from the real emotion that she's performing. And when she sees herself performing in a way that she likes, she smiles about it. That's what we're actually
Proud
seeing.
of herself.
Your question was about the jury. You know what the jury asked her? How do you decide when you're going to tell the truth and when you're not? The jury asked, why should anyone believe you because you've lied about everything? That's from the jury.
Well, yeah,
So they
at
get
least
it.
one person on the jury. Anyway, panel, stay with us. More of Jodi Arias' shocking answers when we come back. And don't forget to tell us what you think about the trial. Will Jodi be found guilty? Tweet me or send me a message on Facebook.
Why should anybody believe you now?
Like I said before, I lied a lot in the beginning. I understand that there will always be questions, but all I can do at this point is say what happened to the best of my recollection. And if I'm convicted, then that's because of my own bad choices.
Bad choices? Like the choice to bring a gun to your lover's house because you knew he was going on vacation with another woman? Anyway, that's just me. Panel is back with us now. Dr. Sharp, here's her defense attorney asking her about her shame over the murder of her lover.
What are you ashamed of as it relates to June 4th, 2008?
I'm ashamed that I did what I did. I'm ashamed that I'm the person that did that. I was ashamed beyond that. I was ashamed of some of the things that Travis and I did.
Ashamed.
If you allow me to make a big psychiatric point, she says that the shame is the consequence of the killing. I say the shame is the cause of the killing.
And I say it's even worse. You shouldn't be ashamed. You should be mortified. You should be sorry, not ashamed.
How about
ashamed
guilty?
is almost as though they're holding you up to public, criticism. Therefore, I am ashamed.
Sure.
Not, I'm sorry, I killed the guy.
But back to psychiatry. Freud said...
Back to psychiatry.
Freud said, going all the way back to Freud, that the loss of love generates shame for a moment. That if she lost Travis and couldn't have him, she felt shame. And I say she couldn't tolerate that, so she summoned up a murderous rage. And it was triggered when she went there.
What did you think of the way she reacted?
Just now, if you looked, you saw contempt. And if you put that contempt into context, exactly what you're saying, self-contempt in what she did. So, right, I agree.
All right, Jeff. Now, how could someone who admitted that she committed murder against the murder of someone she says she loved talk about this in such cold and calculating demeanor?
You know, there's been many Jodis on the stand. That sometimes, she's lawyer Jodi, sometimes she's meek and mild victim Jodi, sometimes she's just librarian Jodi. The reality is that what you just said for a juror or somebody listening is exactly right. You want to hear them say, I am so sorry I had to kill
If only
Travis.
I could take that back.
How can she just simply say, yeah, I'm ashamed? It's crazy. And I think the jury gets that.
Is she crazy, doctor?
She's morally crazy. She is detached from her feelings to a fault such that she can do this. She can then go drive and go start making out with some convention guy that she met. She is
Speaking of making
separate.
out, Arias' boyfriend says she kissed him just hours after she killed Travis. Here's her being asked about that one.
How could you kiss another man when you knew what you just did to Travis?
Again, my state of mind wasn't right at that time. This was just hours afterward.
Your mind wasn't right. What say you?
She wants us to say, of course her mind wasn't right, but that's not the problem. The problem isn't what we'd imagine wasn't right. The problem was she's so detached from her feelings. That's not like a
Her
broken
mind
record,
wasn't
but-
right. Then how did she figure to throw the camera in the washing machine to try to wash out the
Yeah,
memory
I'm not
card?
saying she didn't know what she was doing. I just
Covering up. That's what she's doing. She's covering up.
Oh, so she thinks.
Yeah,
What did
so
you think of
she
her body
thinks.
language,
Just
Tanya?
the detachment. It really is scary to see how she can have that flat affect and then suddenly smile in this way that says, hey, listen, I did what I did. It's over. I'm going to get away with it with her soft little voice that kind of comes across very young and immature, and she kind of just thinks, let me play it the easy way and see what I can get away with.
All right, Jeff, she says she was a victim of domestic violence and that she killed to defend herself. Is there any evidence of that at all in the trial?
Really very, very little. The kind of things that she says you might get, you know, a nun might do in parochial school. Okay, your mom slapped her, you know, on the wrist with a wooden spoon. And then there is the issue about whether her
Did you
finger
go to
was
Catholic
broken.
schools too, Jeff? I
didn't.
got slapped on the wrist with that.
Judge, it is an offense to every victim of domestic violence that she's claiming this. And I think that by her doing it, she may hurt legitimate victims of domestic violence who need that battered woman syndrome in court.
But what about, doctor, and I'll ask you this, Tanya, as well. They have in this courtroom what they call a jumbotron.
Well, big screen.
A big screen, all right, of nude photos of her at pornographic stuff.
Yep.
Is there is she an exhibitionist? How is this going to help her that she's having sex with this guy unless she's in, you know, being beaten or something? And even then, she could be into S&M. I wouldn't put anything past
Well,
her.
apparently she had a camera everywhere she went. She liked to photograph their trips, their experiences in the bedroom. And I think that somehow this is making the jury get overwhelmed, you know, by her tendencies. And I'm not sure how that's going to work legally in the court, but...
Is it thinking that they'll be desensitized?
She's trying to dirty up the victim and say that Travis, you know, was controlling her, that Travis was a sexual deviant. It just dirty up the victim so they don't kill her.
Especially now that you see her appearance and you see how she's completely changed at 180. So yeah, let's change this.
You know, she's dressed like, you know, she's a nun with the collar and
Big
everything else.
difference.
Anyway,
Big
great
difference in that.
panel. Dr. Sharp, Tanya Ryman, Jeff Gold, thanks so much for being with us.